podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome once again to How We're the Podcast as we gather once again to talk all things Sunderland. And on this occasion, it follows our trip to Bristol City, which bizarrely, for an Easter weekend, has zero consequence on how our season ends up. So no doubt the conversation will steer to what lies ahead as much as the game at Ashton Gate. So to help us with this, we first have a familiar voice, which in this case is in the form of an Aussie Mackem hybrid accent, which can only mean Martin Wanless. Hello, Martin.
Hello, mate. No, I don't think I've got a hybrid accent. I still need to put subtitles on when I talk to anybody out here, so I'm all good, man.
Well, I'm the same down Sheffield when I'm not saying buy gum and all that sort of stuff, or I'm trying to bend down and pick up a 20p piece I've just found. You know, they can't understand what I'm going on about. But yeah, did you have to stay up late as usual or early? I can't never remember which way it
midnight.
is.
That was a midnight kickoff, so it's all right at the moment. Midnight is fairly reasonable, so just stayed up and ploughed through.
It sounds absolutely delightful staying up till midnight to watch that. But there you go. You know, wherever you get your kicks, Martin, I suppose. But good to have you on as always. And for our special guest today, it seems fitting that we had Gary Hours to preview the game, because we had someone who played alongside Gary in the Sunderland midfield for many years. He made 416 appearances for Sunderland, as well as an FA Cup final at Wembley, and he played, of course, in a playoff final, which we might pick his brains on today, because we are very pleased to have the company of Gordon Armstrong. Welcome, Gordon.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for joining us on your Easter weekend. How are you keeping?
Yeah, all well. Yeah. Obviously a bit disappointed after yesterday, but yeah, fair enough. As you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I mentioned, Easter weekend. I mean, as a player, Gordon, you know, when you look back through the seasons that you had, was Easter weekend one that, you know, towards the end of the season at times you look forward to thinking, oh, actually we can actually jump from here to here, or, you know, if you're going for survival, you can get yourself out with 2 quick fire games?
Yeah, well, one thing about playing for Sunderland, it always seemed to mean something, that's for certain. We're either at the bottom or the top, whatever it was. So yeah, the games are always important, and I think players look forward to them. You know, people say, is it quite difficult to play so soon after each one? But, you know, you just prepare yourself and look forward to both games, and then usually we get, you know, better crowds and what have you. So there's always exciting times, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any that stick out for you, thinking about Easter weekends where you kind of, you did really well, or you lost something, or?
Yeah, I can't think of it top of my head. No, to be honest, no. But I'm sure there's more 2 decent ones in there.
Well, I was going to say, I think Gary Hours might have mentioned that one was it the one in 1990? I think he said, was it Port Vale and Wolves or something like that? And he said you ended up going for a barbecue or something.
Yeah. He probably told the story when we went down and stayed in Keele University in Stoke and stuff. Yeah, so yeah, we had a good couple of days, shall we say? Mr. Smith tended to celebrate well when we won, so yeah, we had a good couple of days. Yeah, in fact, I think we were still out the night before the game before we played Port Vale on the whatever it was, the Monday. Yeah, so yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I'm hopeless with remembering back dates and stuff. Yeah, so I can't remember any of it. Yeah, but you let them play football, aren't you? So that's what I always say.
Sounds like a good jolly a few weeks before the playoffs, which you know, we might need to tell Regis Le Bris to do that with his players.
We actually carried on after that. I always tell people we beat Newcastle, obviously. And then unfortunately we went away for a week in New York and Minorca. So yeah, I think that's probably why we did play so well in the final. But there you go.
That's a good preparation. I mean, Martin, thinking about the Easter weekends, I always think of the first one at the Stadium of Light with West Brom and QPR with Mike Sheeran scoring.
Mike Sheeran, yeah. No, it's engraved and etched into me, scarred into my memory, that one.
That's it. Well, it all turned out well in the end. But yeah, if that hadn't happened, maybe the next few wouldn't have. So that's the only reason I cling on to that not being as horrific as it probably was at the time. But Gordon, just quickly, I mean, I was reading you were coaching at the University of Sunderland, and of course you've been involved in sports management for a long time. But what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, and the university football's finished now, so we've had a good season. I enjoy that with the kids. You get all sorts of different types of lads coming in, and all age groups. So, it can be anything from sort of 18, 19-year-old to, we've had lads in there over in the 50s sort of thing. So it's really interesting, and Gary Bennett got me into it, to be honest, and I really enjoy it. So that's been good. Football agency I've done since I jacked in, really. A couple of lads asked me to do it when I finished at Burnley, and I'm still doing that now. Yeah, I work with a company, so Quantum Sports. So yeah, I enjoy that. Not quite as much fun as it used to be, to be honest, but there's so much money in football, it's a bit crazy. But yeah, I've done that for a long time now, over 20 years. So yeah, it's all good as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, before we do get into the game, it's probably worth picking your brains on that. With so much experience in that field. I mean, purely looking at in terms of football recruitment, Christian Speakman, he's been in place with his team since December 2020, so just over 4 years now. I mean, in terms looking at the broad spectrum of that role within football now. I mean, what do you make of the job he's done over 4 years? Where you look at that team he picked up in League One, and you look at the squad now.
Yeah, listen, Christian's his own man. I think, you know what I mean. He really is. He does it his own way. He has an opinion, and he's done it really well. You can't knock what he's done. He's done an amazing job. I think obviously it's not just Christian. Like Christian gets level with the recruitment side, and I think probably it's more Stuart Harvey overall. I think there's a group of them all together, but Stuart's the biggest influence in all of that, and obviously Christian backs him up. But the look at the players that we have signed in over that time, and where we are with player recruitment now, it's miles better than where it had been previously. Look, we've got assets at the football club. We all know that. It's just what we do with them and how the chairman wants to deal with that, and that'll be the big thing moving forward. I think if you look at all the clubs that have done well over time, that's how they've gained success. They've bought and sold players. Basically, you buy them cheaply, sell at a bigger price, and you can move on. And that's obviously part of the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you see someone like Christian Speakman, and like you said, it's you say Christian Speakman, but when you say his name, it probably means 5 people. It's him and his team, like you just said. Stuart Harvey being that main name in there as well. I mean, how much of an asset is that as a to have that team at a football club like Sunderland, when they're now ingrained in how it works, and they've had 4 years behind them building it. They've got plans for the next year, probably 18 months. I mean, how important is that team to Sunderland as an asset?
Well, my biggest feeling is about a football club, and obviously the most important one for me is Sunderland. It is the biggest part of a football club. If you get that right, like I say, you've got a chance to progress and to do well. Like I say, you look at teams that are in the Premier League, they've done amazingly well, like Bournemouth, who was a tiny club. I don't know if you've ever been to Bournemouth. You will have been, guys, I'm sure. It's in a park. The ground is in a park. It's tiny. It's a tiny football club that I think that the maximum amount of people can get in a ground is about 18,000. But they've bought and sold players well. Brentford, you can go through them all the ones, Brighton, all these clubs are not huge football clubs. Like, all of them have been, pardon my language, but in the mess, shall I put? Yeah, they've been in the bottom league. They've been nowhere, and that's what they've done well. They've got people in that can find talent that from nowhere, and then, like I said, buy them in cheap, sell them, whatever you want to call it, trading players. They've done it especially well, and if you do that, you've got a chance to move your football club forward. And we don't want to sell our best players. I understand that. We didn't want to sell Clark. We don't want to sell our best players. We'd probably end up selling someone like Joe in the summer. But I understand it. It's football, and if you want to progress, you've got to make money and then go and do it again and keep doing it. And eventually, we might get to a place where we can sustain it and get doing really well again in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, just from a fan point of view, I mean, you obviously think, Gordon's already mentioned Job, and there's obviously Chris Rigg being linked to all over the place, being on lists of best young players in Europe and all this sort of stuff. So we immediately think of players, but surely you would think somewhere in boardrooms across the country in Premier League, or, especially maybe the bottom half of the Premier League, that teams like Christian Speakman's are probably sought after.
Well, you'd imagine so, wouldn't you? If football clubs are doing the job correctly, they'll all have succession plans for the people who they've got in place at the moment. And they'll all be wanting to improve the behind-the-scenes stuff because, as Gordon said, it's almost the most important bit. The players on the field and the manager and whoever else, they're the most visible people at a football club. But they can only succeed long-term if the people behind the scenes are stable and consistent and doing a good job, bringing the right players in, providing the right platform for those people to actually perform. And, I think Christian Speakman's quite a divisive figure, isn't he, among Sunderland fans? Some people will, think he's doing a great job. Others will slag him off to high heaven for not bringing in another striker in January. And it's, that immediate thing versus the long-term thing. And I think, any single person, any single job, you can pick through, if you've done that better or done this better, that's a natural thing. But if you kind of move out a little bit and look at the big picture and look at where we were when you came in, the squad that we had when you came in, the value of the squad that we had when you came in, and compare it to now, it's like night and day, isn't it? It's a completely different football club. And look, there'll be things that I'm sure he would go back and do differently if he had the ability to turn back time. But I think overall he's done a great job. And, even if you look back at some of the people who we've had trying to do a similar job, you look at who do we have, Defanti and Lee Congerton and people like that. They all had the same sort of remit, you'd presume. Obviously, you were talking Premier League football then rather than League One and Championship. But, to make such an impact that he has done, I think it's all credit to him. And as you say, that there absolutely will be clubs in the Premier League who have his name jotted down. If they need a director of football or a sporting director or whatever, he would be a name that they'd be interested in. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've given everyone nightmares now, mentioning Defanti and Congerton, so we're not going to be able to sleep for a couple of nights. Cheers, Martin. But you mentioned, Gordon, that maybe the sports management and agency side of things might not be as fun, but the agent fees from the Championship were released in the last week or so, from February 2024 to February 2025, and the figures looked fun to me. I suppose if you're having those getting paid out to agency fees. Sunderland had the 10th highest amount at around 2.17 million, behind the likes of Hull, Norwich and Middlesbrough. But at the top was Leeds, who had paid out an eye-watering £18.8 million. Looking at that table and looking at that, because, you look the next club, Burnley, who was second behind Leeds, 5.3 million. You're talking almost 4 times the amount. Does that show how much clubs are willing to gamble to get in the Premier League?
Yeah, totally. Listen, the agent fees basically all come in because, a lot of guys don't understand it, is that the players don't pay it, the clubs pay it. And basically the more money they spend, they're obviously going to spend more money on agents fees. And, generally as a rule of thumb, agents will get around about 5% of a deal. Depends on what the player's being paid. There is other circumstances where, that could change a little bit. And listen, I don't agree with how high the agent's fee is. Listen, I've benefited over time and, done deals that, I've benefited, and nobody's going to turn down the money at the end of the day. I'm not going to lie. But I don't agree that the levels that are at, I think it should be a smaller amount. Some of the deals, especially in the Premier League, are absolutely crazy. And, it's gone too far, really. I think players' wages, again, are too high. Obviously, in the Premier League, are absolutely crazy at times. Yeah, some of the amounts of money that people are getting when people are doing proper jobs and, don't know on that, in a year, what these players earn in a week. So, it's gone a bit crazy and gone too far for my liking anyway.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Gordon, is it like, are you saying it's too high now, or wasn't high enough in the early 90s or something when you played?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't high enough in the early 90s. Yeah, right. Listen, I just feel it. Listen, and I always say is you look back over time, and footballers prior to my time obviously earn even less. So I have no whinges about what I earned in football, none at all. I was a lucky lad. I did something I loved. And was well paid for it, and don't have any issues with anything. Good luck to the guys that moving forward. They've got it's gone crazy because of Sky and all the things have happened. But I still feel that it's gone too far the other way, where it's now at a stage where it's superstardom and all that type of thing. These lads at Man United and Chelsea and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just looking at that table of agents' fees, and I'm looking at it in order. I mean, just like we can look at wages, can we look at that list as almost a barometer of how well we've managed things? Because you look at the top three in that table of agents' fees, it's Leeds, Burnley, Sheffield United, which is the top three. And then after that, you've got Hull City on 3.1 or almost 3.2 million. And then you've got Middlesbrough. So could you say that us being 10th on that table, is that a sign that how well we've managed things, that actually we've paid out the 10th amount in terms of agents' fees, but actually we are fourth behind those top three who have shelled out the most?
Yeah, obviously the guys that are in the top three are the ones that came out in the Premier League generally in the Championship. That's how it is. They're paid more money. They were in the Premier League, they would have taken a drop. So the agents' fees will still stay high, and that's generally where it is. But yeah, I'd agree with you. The fact that we're 10th on that list shows that, we've been prudent, and we are a big club. There's no hiding from that. We get the biggest attendances. Some people might say, well, we should spend a bit more, maybe, but it's good not to overspend. And we, like I say, you look at the squad overall, and, it's all good. So, yeah, well done on the club on that. I do feel that we have to stretch a little bit further on transfers and spend a few more quid, and maybe go top end with a couple of players that could just make a difference. I'm sure they've got targets out there that maybe before they haven't pushed the boat out for. But in my opinion, I think we need to do that and maybe sign a couple that really can make a difference. The one that everybody always talks about, it's no secret, with a top end centre forward. And I'm not knocking the guys that are in there now; they're doing a good job. I don't feel any of them is a real out and out centre forward.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, again from a fan's point of view, 2.1 million, but around the middle of the pack, if you like, in the Championship. I mean, from a fan's perspective, what's your feeling on how much was spent on agents' fees, and I suppose relative to everyone else?
Well, it's always a difficult one from a fan's point of view, isn't it? Because it's a completely removed thing from your day-to-day experience as a supporter, and you kind of look at any money going out the club, and you want to see that reflected in quality on the field. So I guess if it ends up helping us bring in more quality, then it's fine to spend, isn't it? I think the interesting thing is when you look at our place in that list on agents' fees and our place on the list of the wages that the clubs are paying out, it's both fairly similar. I think we're kind of like 14th or whatever in the wages in the Championship as well, aren't you? So I think when you take that into consideration, look at our league position based on what we've actually put in from salaries and agents, because it's all the same thing. It's recruitment, isn't it? So if you look at the money that we're actually putting into there, you could make a really strong case that we're overperforming for what we're actually putting in at present. And I think, as Gordon said, if you can kind of bring in a couple of really star quality players, like we brought Lefebvre and we haven't seen him too much yet. But players like that, of that ilk, where he's just got quality, he is a real difference maker, and can be the difference between 1 point and 3 points a number of times during the course of the season. Then you kind of got a nice recipe for success. But I think it's kind of reflective of the approach of the football club overall, in terms of we're trying to get good deals, we're trying to run more sustainably than we have been in the past, and the fact that we kind of match up on agents' fees and wages, it's kind of a similar level in terms of the overall spending in the league. Kind of tells its own story, I think.
Yeah. And obviously, kind of on the pitch, Gordon, I just quickly obviously want to take you back to the summer, because we appointed Regis Le Bris out of nowhere, after last season with getting it wrong with Michael Beale and then limping in with Mike Dodds. But, I imagine your reaction was similar to everyone else's, and it was kind of who is this fella that we brought in as manager. But I assume you've been impressed with him.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, he obviously looked at the squad and looked at the Championship and felt that the biggest thing to improve on was probably our defending, and I think he's done a lot of work on that. He seems a very organised, structured guy, and he's got the team obviously a lot stronger this year, and I don't think that the level of football has been probably as high as, and going forward, it's probably been as good as Tony Mowbray's. But on the other side, he does have a defensive structure that he makes us hard to beat. Even yesterday with 10 men, we were really, really tough to beat, and lucky not to come out with something from the game, even though they had loads of possession and whatever. So I think he's done a fantastic job. I would like to see a bit more emphasis on maybe attacking at times, but overall, he can't knock anything he's done. To get to fourth is amazing, because at the end of last season, if it'd been another month, 6 weeks, like everybody said, I think we would have struggled to stay up. We were playing that badly. So he's done an amazing job, and all credit him. Anybody ever asked me, and that's all I've ever said, is that I think he's done a great job, and he has. There's going to come away from that. If you'd have asked any Sunderland supporter before the start of the season, would you have taken fourth? And we would have done. We all would have done into equipment, no doubt.
Yeah, you say that, but now we're fourth. Everyone wants more.
Yeah, everybody wants more.
It's just natural, isn't it? Yeah. Just on that, because obviously you were a young player coming through, and you mentioned Tony Mowbray, and he gave those young players a lot of freedom. Some of them were allowed to almost do whatever they wanted and go into whatever pockets they wanted, especially going forward. But do you think, in terms of that group of young players, that this manager's given them a structure that maybe they needed?
Yeah, probably. I think that probably the biggest gain of this season so far as a player to me is, I think Job is the best player. That's who I think personally is the best player. But if you're asking me who's improved most this season, I think, and the one that's benefited the most, probably Dan Neil. He's been amazing this year overall. Listen, they all have their ups and downs, and don't play as well this game and that game. But I think he's improved a hell of a lot, and he's made him understand the position. And Dan's been excellent this season. So they would be the two for me. And there's been loads of others great performances and stuff from lads that have come through again. So overall, it's been positive. Probably the biggest thing has hurt is injuries, isn't it? Like Sirkin, people like that. I really rate Sirkin as well, to be fair, but unfortunately, he does get injured a lot. So that's been a bit of a down. And obviously, we've had loads of other low injuries, Enzo, people like that have cost us as well, to be fair.
Yeah, it's probably half the reason that Dennis Sirkin plays for us.
Yeah.
And he gets injured. Right, well, look, let's get into the game, because people have been listening for over 20 minutes waiting for us to slag off this referee. So we better get into it. Look, I mean, I thought, first 5 minutes, I thought we actually started the game quite well, and I thought we kind of controlled things first 5 minutes. And then on 6 minutes, a pretty innocuous ball over the top, which I think, we can maybe mention 09 probably not dealing with it properly, getting on the wrong side. Ball goes over the top, and then it's Hume on the cover. And then he was deemed to trip the Bristol City player. I can't even remember which player it was now off the top of my head. But he went down after a couple of stumbles, and it was a free kick. And then we can maybe get into the fact that there was about 6 or 7 Bristol City players crowding the referee, telling him what to do. And I think he made quite a quick decision. But Gordon, what did you make of the whole scenario?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and he's got an assessor up in the stand. If he doesn't do his job, then he'll be deemed to be marked down or whatever. So it's a difficult one. Is it a goal? That's I suppose the big question is it a proper goal scoring situation? I'm not sure it is, to be honest. I think there is a little bit of cover around. He's certainly not meant to bring him down. Tries not meant to bring him down, so he's really unfortunate on that level. He's tried to get out of his way. He probably touched him. I don't think there's loads of contact either. So I do feel sorry for him in that one. And if he does miss the last 3 games with what they're saying, it seems very, very harsh. But they're the rules of football now. I think you can say is that if it was the other end, we'd have been screaming for it, and we would all been shouting to say you've got to send him off. So it swings and roundabouts. You get some and some you don't. Yeah, but I do feel sorry for trying more than anything. I don't think it's certainly not a 3-match ban. It shouldn't be. I know the lad likes to tackle and he'll get stuck in. It probably has a few. I don't know how many bookings he's got, but he'll have quite a lot. But yeah, I do feel sorry for him on that one, I must say. More, I feel sorry for the player, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were talking beforehand about it quickly, but I mean, just in terms of a decision as big as that, Gordon, do you not think that because we're still debating whether there's contact? Does the referee not have to be absolutely sure? Because otherwise, if we can't tell after how many replays from how many angles, is he not just guessing?
Yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think if it went to VAR, like we said before, and I think it probably wouldn't have sent him off. I probably would have looked at it anyway. But again, you could say that, but there's no conclusive evidence that he didn't not touch him. So again, it's a real grey area, isn't it? You know what I mean? You've been fighting over that one as well, both ways. So, it's a real hard one. And like I say, it's just unfortunate. And like you said, we started so well. It looked like they were going to sit in and counter-attack, to be fair, was what their plan was. For the first 5 or 6 minutes, we had all the ball. Looked like this is going to be a stroll in the park. And then all of a sudden, that happened and it completely switches around. They have all the ball and we're sitting in trying to counter-attack on them. So, unfortunately, that's football and, they're the rules. So we have to get on with it. We could argue all day with somebody changing it, is it?
Well, and on that, I can see Martin absolutely itching to come on. But just quickly, Martin, Gordon raised the point. Would we not have been screaming for this if it was the other way around?
100%, but I think we would have been screaming at it with about 25% thing of getting it. So there's a few things with this, right? So we don't know whether there was contact or not. You can't see it. Who initiated the contact, first of all, is a big thing. Now, Hume sort of steps back to try to let him go past. And Wells, I think it's Naki Wells who goes through.
All right. Okay.
For me, he initiates the contact. And I'll tell you for why. Right? Because
here we go.
If you watch it again, watch how he celebrates when he gets up and he sees the referee's given the red card. He celebrates if he's scored a goal. He celebrates if he's won something. Now, if you're a striker and you're going through and you genuinely fouled, you get up and turn around and you're furious. He was celebrating that he scored a goal.
Good point.
So I think he's absolutely 100% played for that. And that celebration, that reaction, is him going, get in, I've succeeded. The other bit of it is he has to be the best striker in the world for that to be a clear goal scoring opportunity. Like he has to be prime Gareth Bale to hit that with his left foot from that. He's going away from goal. He's 24 yards out. There's not a hope in hell he can score right from that thing. You've got 09 coming back who would have covered him. So I think it's a completely shite decision. And the interesting, I think it'll be a one-match ban, Gordon, for a foul like that rather than a 3 for a dangerous play or whatever. But the interesting thing with this is, I think Le Bris said he wasn't sure whether to appeal or not. And for one perspective, I can see it because, Hume was probably likely to sit out Blackburn anyway. I think, he needs a rest and he's been carrying an injury. If he got sent off again for a similar thing in one of the next 2 league games after that, would the fact that we've not appealed this one actually increase the suspension going into the playoffs?
It would.
And that's the biggest thing. So I actually think we need to appeal because it's not going to be a frivolous appeal like we cocked up with Michael Turner all those seasons ago and got an extra match for appealing the wrong thing. But I think we need to appeal this because if he got sent off for something similar against Oxford or QPR, he'd miss an extra game, which could be really catastrophic because we don't have another right back. So I think it was an awful decision. And I think if you're appealing that, I think you've got a bloody good chance of getting that overturned. And you know what? Like 6 minutes into the game, the referee could not get that card out fast enough, right? And so early in the game, he's got to be 100% sure of what he's doing there because he changes the whole course of the game. He changes the whole dynamic of the game. And I'm just so glad there was nothing from our perspective riding on that game because that would have been such a much bigger decision than it was. Now, look, you picked up on the Bristol City players surrounding the referee, and we don't do that. And I don't like teams doing that, but I think we need to actually start doing that because other teams are doing it against us, and they're getting decisions from it. And we're really kind of quite pragmatic about things, and we accept decisions, and we don't crowd. And I thought there was supposed to be a rule where players got booked if they came and surrounded. Nobody. He didn't get
It's
his
like the
cards
6
out.
second rule, isn't it?
Oh man! So there's so many bits that piss me off with that. And you've got that 84 minutes or whatever it is to play that whole game. And again, I'm just glad there was nothing from our perspective riding on it, because I'd be even more annoyed.
Yeah, and here's where Gordon tells us he was nice as pie to all the referees and never did such a thing.
No.
But do you think that makes an impact when they do that, Gordon?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Why do you think to do it? And listen, it's just an emotional thing. To be fair, I would say I have seen one or two of our lads do it. Certainly, Luke O'Neill does it. That's for certain. If it's against him, it's part of football. It's an emotional response in it, and you want to win the game. That's what you paid for as a footballer, to win the game. So I understand it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's right, but I understand why everybody does it. It does put pressure on the referee. He's more likely to give a decision. If it's down to 10 men, you're more likely to win the game. So, why wouldn't you do it? It's, you're never going to stop that. I don't think you're never ever going to be able to stop that. You listen, some managers have a good influence over people, and I know Brian Clough always went on about it and stuff. People like that. And I agree that it should be the way, but it's very, very, very difficult to stop players in an emotional situation from responding to bad decisions by Malvern referees, unfortunately.
Yeah. I always like Dan Neil, how he does it, but he always points to his captain's armband, like, I'm allowed to slag you off as much as I want, ref. I'm captain. I'm allowed to. But talking about response, Gordon, I mean, I thought, the next kind of 25 minutes or so, certainly, but if not, maybe the rest of the half, and we'll come on to the goal in a minute. But I thought it was a brilliant reaction from Sunderland. And we had a couple of ways of changing things. And I think, with O'Neill moved out to fullback and Roberts moved to fullback at first. And then we switched things. O'Neill moved to fullback and then Dan Neil dropped in. But I thought it was a fantastic response. We kept possession of the football. And just on from a midfielder as well, Gordon, you're talking about, if you'd said backs to the wall stuff, 10 men, and you've got Chris Rigg and Lefay as your central midfield pair, you'd probably wince and go, hang on, that might not work. But certainly for the rest of the 45 minutes, we dug in, kept our positions and actually kept possession of the football a bit as well.
Yeah, no, listen, they've done great. Like you say, it totally changes the dynamic of the game, doesn't it? 11 against 10. They now start having possession of the ball. And yeah, they set us up to try and obviously hit them on the break and obviously score a fantastic goal on the back of that. But again, it shows that he's worked on these things, you know what I mean? He knows what he's doing. He's setting the team up to be difficult to beat. And for a long, long chunk of that game, we looked like we could hold on. So all credit to them. It's not a non-easy situation to be in after 5 or 6 minutes or whatever it was. So, again, the lads dug in and showed a great attitude. So, all credit to the boys again.
Yeah, just on that, Gordon, from your experience being involved in with various managers, how much do teams work on that specific scenario, and how effective is it in training? Are you suddenly just able to click into what you did in training and lock into those positions?
I think especially we used to do a lot especially when we played at Burnley, we used to do it again a hell of a lot, where you'd overload it, you'd sort of play 10 against maybe like 8, and then you wouldn't believe actually, if you set up and do it right, how hard it is to score goals. And because at the end of the day, you're just defending. You know what you got to do. You're going to dig in. You're going to make it difficult for them. You let it cross from certain positions, things like that. Let it go wide and let it cross, and make sure you deal with all them bits. But I think now generally in football, that's all they do all the time. They do drills on, like certain situations, that how they're gonna break up the play and hit people on the counter attack. So, they will do that probably 2 or 3 times a week in different situations and different drills. So no, you're very, very used to it, 100%. Yeah.
I remember a game at Molineux in 1991 where Gordon got sent off, and then John Byrne got sent off. And I think it wasn't until the last couple of minutes or the last 10 minutes where Wolves actually broke us down and scored, was it? So kind of it's even more difficult with 9 men than 10, isn't it? But,
Bernie got sent off for telling the referee to do one, and I got sent off for telling the same linesman that he spoiled the game. Maybe there's a couple of the words in there, but and so then I got sent off 5 or 30. So, after 15 minutes when Bernie got in the dressing room getting changed, and as I walked in, he went, "What the hell are you doing in here? What are you doing in here?" I said, "I'm doing the same thing as you, mate." I've been sent off.
I mean, Martin, just on the way we kind of, I mentioned that Lefay had to kind of sit back and lock into that two banks of four. But is he cursed not to play in a more freer role in that midfield? Because, he comes in and he starts out on the left, and then we'll try and get him into the middle. Then he gets injured, and then he comes into the three, and then someone gets sent off, and he has to lock into a defensive position. I mean, is he cursed not to play in that three in the middle?
Let's hope not. I think for the first 5 minutes, he was the best player in the field, wasn't he? He probably had more touches in the first 5 minutes than he had in the rest of the time he had on the field. But look, I think for Lefay yesterday, it was probably actually quite a good game because he was just running up and down, up and down, up and down. His fitness will have got a big, a big hit, good bit of fitness work. And hopefully that'll set us up in good stead for, what lies ahead. But, I think we're all dying to see him play in that, in a midfield three for 90 minutes and really show us what he can do, because we haven't had the opportunity to see him yet. But, it's just one of them things, wasn't it? Unfortunately, it'll be interesting to see if he actually starts on Monday. I don't think he will. I think we'll probably bring him out again on Monday. But hopefully, as I say, that hour or so he had in there, will benefit from that hopefully over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's it. Well,
that's what I feel. The biggest positive of yesterday is exactly that. Is like you got Joe back in, Enzo's got some minutes. I've got some lads that haven't been playing back in the team, so that's the biggest positive for me. And I think the other one that I look at, it for a while, like Pato was having a right wobble. He seemed a little bit all over the place, and he seems to have settled down now and got back to what he was before. So I think that's big for the team as well. I think they will stick with Pato, and he does start. The last few weeks he started to look like the keeper he was before. He definitely had a wall for a couple of months, didn't he? But he picked up as well, so that's really important. You got then you got the other lads, your Memphis and Triumes and Luke O'Neill you can rely on 100%, and I would love to see Sirkin back in it and doing well. I did hear that he might well be involved this week, so hopefully he is there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we took the lead on the half hour. Mayenda got the goal. Gordon already touched on it. I mean, what a goal as well. And when you're down to 10 men and backs to the wall stuff, you need a player who can carry the ball like this. Picked up the ball halfway inside our half, rode 2 tackles to start with, and then just kind of went at them, used his pace, was positive. And, where some check back, he just kept on going forward, got into the box, got the defenders nervous and finished it off. But an absolutely brilliant goal, Gordon.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, probably be up there for goal of the season, won't it? I mean, to do that on your own was just incredible. To be 3-4 players and then have the state of mind to calm yourself down to finish like that after a run like that is all credit to the lad. And he looks a buy as well. To be fair, he's flying. It's probably the big question is now who leads the line. Is it him? That will be the question for the manager. Yeah, I can even see them maybe even sticking Isidor out wide and switching it around at times. So it's good again, just to have good players in form. So just hopefully he continues that on, and we don't get any more injuries before the end of the season, and the playoffs we get it flying really. Yeah, that's all we bothered about now, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. And I mean, Martin, on recent pods, you've been talking a lot about Mayenda and he's in pole position for that position up front that Gordon's just been talking about. And I just want to put one to you here because we, as part of something we've done, we've looked a lot at that 1989-90 season. And I know, you think about, those goals that Marco Gabbiadini scored in those years. And, we talk so much about how Marco Gabbiadini picked up the ball and just drove forward. Didn't think about checking back, didn't think about looking back, didn't think about who was in support. Just went forward with the ball, went at defenders, got them nervous, got them on the back foot. And that's exactly what Mayenda did here. Just got into the box and got them nervous, and they couldn't put a foot on him.
No, he did. And I think it's really hard to defend against when you've got a player like that. And I think it makes defenders quite nervous about trying to sort of structure themselves if you've got opposition players who can carry the ball at pace and go past you, because, as I say, it's hard to defend against. And it's, I think it's going to be really interesting over the next few weeks, because we're obviously using this. I think, in all honesty, since the Leeds game, I think the club's been resigned to being in the playoffs. And I think this last spell after the international break has obviously been geared up to getting everybody in pole position in peak fitness to have those, hopefully 3 games in the playoffs come May. And I think we could all sit here now and go, well, if everybody's fit, we'd probably agree on 9 or 10 of the starting 11. The big question here is obviously Romain Mundle, who might be back for the playoffs, might not. And what Gordon's just said there about Isidor playing out wide, I've been saying the same thing for the last couple of months, because he came as a left winger, essentially. He came as somebody who plays from the left, and we've never seen him out there. And I just think with all of this spell that we've had, and to not play him out there, I think we desperately need to give him a run out there, in one of these next 2 or 3 games, because that left-hand side of the field, if Mundle's not available, is a problem, because I don't want us to push Lefay out there. I want Lefay to be central. So I think we desperately need to look at Isidor out there, because, if we were sitting here putting our best 11 players, not necessarily the best formation, but the best 11 players out there who can win games for us, because, as Gordon's also said earlier, one of the things that you could criticise us for is our attacking and goal scoring. And you've got Isidor, who has shown he can score great goals out of nothing. Mayenda's, if anybody had said after, I think it was Blackburn away and Stoke away, wasn't it? It was 2 consecutive games over Christmas where Mayenda had missed last sort of late chances to get us a win or get us a point. Get us a win, I think, in both games. If anybody had said at that point that Mayenda would be, in pole position to be first choice centre forward for the playoffs, you'd have seen a seismic sort of shift in form, because Isidor was right out there, wasn't he? And I think really we kind of need to get both of them in the team somehow. Now, we're not going to go 4-4-2 again, because, we've tried that didn't really work and doesn't really suit us how we play. So I really think we need to try something with either Isidor or Mayenda out wide. I think Mayenda's good coming in from the right. I don't think he's really suited to coming in from the left. So I think we really need to try Isidor out there, because he can cut inside on his right foot. And that's one thing that's really baffled me over the past couple of months, that we haven't just even given him half an hour in a game to have a run out there, because we haven't seen what he can do.
Yeah, but I mean, Gordon, I mentioned Mark Gabbiadini, probably a bit self-indulgent for myself, obviously, going back to when I first started going to watch Sunderland. But, one of the things that he was good at was, picking the ball up and getting you up the pitch, carrying the ball, what was it, 20, 30 yards or whatever. I mean, not necessarily when you're down to 10 men, not that specific scenario, but just in general, how important is someone like Mayenda to just get the ball and, when you defend, and as a defender, as a midfielder, just to then just carry the ball up. So, you win a throw in 20 yards up the pitch, 30 yards up the pitch, but he just gets you out, and, that he's able to carry the ball forward.
Yeah, I think, the 3 players you mentioned there, we've all mentioned, they're all similar types of players. They're a little bit off the cuff. They do things instinctively. They're not, shall we say, like, your stereotypical centre forward, are they? You know what I mean? English centre forward. They're not like a Harry Kane. They're not come in, join the play up. They're more instinctive players. And that's what we got. Like I said, my opinion is we should have somebody up the front who was a natural finisher. I don't think any of them, apart from Gabbers, probably. Gabbers was a great finisher, don't get me wrong. But none of them are what you call, like, instinctive finishers. They're not. The ones called it simple goals. They'll score goals from nothing, won't they? You know what I mean? They find it hard is to finish things off, tap-ins, headers, stuff like that in the box. They're great outside the box, but sometimes, and they both got, the 2 lads have both got legs. They get in behind, they'll run in behind, and they'll break the lines. And listen, I think the way that both of them have both done great. I'm not knocking either of them. They've both done great. So it is important to a team to be able to stretch the game and get out, and both of them can do that. My feeling, my biggest point from yesterday is right now is that the big problem we've probably got is looking at from the outside. And I like the lad. I said at the beginning of the season, I think he can do really well. But Tommy Watson was pulled yesterday, and I think it looks like all the stuff that's going on probably got into his head. We all know he's leaving, and he was a disappointment yesterday. And I think the last few games he hasn't quite been at it. I think that would be the big one from yesterday for me. Who plays centre forward again? I could probably go with Endo right now and try Isidor out there for a game. Why not? Why not go and do it and give it a bash and see what happens? And then probably Patrick Roberts on the right, or again a little bit for me, should be doing more with the ability he's got to score more goals and create more goals. But yeah, it's a difficult one. That's why he gets paid well, the manager. It's a difficult one to solve, and I think I would agree. I would probably stick with my end up front. He's done really well whenever he's come in now and over sustained set of time, and I would stick with him and give Isidor a try on the left and see what happens. See what happens. We've got nothing to lose right now, and Isidor needs minutes anyway, doesn't he? So why not try something new? And definitely Enzo wants to play. I think they brought him to be a 10. At the end of the day, that's what he is, certainly, or in a one-man holding in two midfielders. That's where everybody wants to see him. So, that's certainly where he's got to be the most effective. He's got a great footballing brain and will make chances to score goals, I feel, if he's given that opportunity.
Yeah, just because you mentioned Tommy Watson and obviously your kind of experience in that kind of on the agency side, I imagine this is something he's probably been dealing with since at least January in terms of making that move.
Yeah, listen, it's been going on a while. I think even longer than that. There's been talk of him leaving for a while. So, it's difficult for him, difficult situation, for a young man to be in that situation. Obviously he's agreed to it all. So, he wants to move as well, which is all fair at the end of the day. They made an agreement and that's what's going to happen. But it is a difficult situation for a young man to be in. I'd say you don't really know where you're at. Is he going to put it all in? He's going to put, if the ball drops and it's a 50-50, is he going to put his foot in to make that and possibly, whatever happens to him might happen. So, I think it's a really difficult one to play for the lad. And my own opinion is right now he's probably best out of it. That's they made a decision to sell him and for the betterment of the club, all that. And unfortunately for me yesterday, he'd be the one player that, I'd probably pick on, like supporters used to pick on me sometimes and everybody else. That's just how it is. And that's my opinion anyway right now.
Yeah, never mind the 50-50s, even when it's 80-20 in his favour, I think at the minute it's a tough one, isn't it? But yeah, we went into half-time pretty comfortable. And then I thought the first 10 minutes of the second half, you could almost see it coming. We weren't holding the ball and they kept coming back. Bristol City pinned us in. But Martin, I mean, it needed what? The fear kind of poked the ball clear, maybe trying to look for a pass instead of just getting it kind of 30 yards up the pitch. But it took a 20-yard strike from a centre-half curled in the top corner to get them back on level terms in the end.
It was a nice goal, wasn't it?
Well,
good strike.
That's how you look at it.
Well, in terms of technique, it was a nice goal. But I think we were kind of the architects of our own downfall there, because I think first half we handled Bristol City really well. We played the game exceptionally well, so defensively, and our structure was good. I think they came out, almost all guns blazing in the second half, and our ball retention was crap. We kept giving easy passes away, and I think I think it's actually been a little bit of a problem over the last few weeks. We haven't really looked after the ball well enough when we've got it, and under Le Bris, certainly away from home, we don't have that much possession. Typically, we're kind of 40%, 35% possession typically in an away game. So we've got to look after the ball better. And I think, going into the playoffs and in the away leg especially, that's going to be crucial. And I think for that first sort of 20, 25 minutes of the second half, we were really sloppy in possession. And I think the goal came from it, didn't it? As you say, Lefay kind of tried to slip the ball through, he gave it away. But we had opportunities to break. And I can't remember if it was before that goal or after that goal. But, Rig had a great chance. He broke through to put Roberts away on the right-hand side. Didn't get the pass right. We had a number of other chances where we had relatively simple passes to make, and we kept giving the ball back. So we made it difficult for ourselves. And obviously it was already a difficult scenario for us to deal with, but we didn't help ourselves. But look, 9 times out of 10, that goes flying over the bar, doesn't it? But he stuck it in the top corner, and I don't think Patterson could do anything at all about that. It was when you saw the view from behind the goal, it kind of just curled right into the top corner, didn't it? So you've got to hold your hands up, and there's not much you can do about it defensively.
Yeah, well, he tried it again 5 minutes later, and nearly hit the corner flag. So, but Gordon, I mean, just from your experience, you're down to 10 men. You've gone in. You feel very comfortable. Is it then natural, like even subconsciously, you just end up getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and then it's harder to keep hold of the ball when you're trying to get rid of it? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in, and listen, fair play to them. They came out with a bit more attack minded, didn't they? Had a right go, to be fair to them. And and by the end of the game, they look like Real Madrid, don't they? They've got space, they've got time. Our lads obviously get tired, they're keeping the ball, and we're chasing shadows a little bit. But it tends to happen in the games, and they are a decent side. There's no doubt about that. They've got some good players. So it was a difficult day for us, and the second half was always likely to be a little bit different, wasn't it? And they did come out with a much stronger attitude, and to be fair to them, they got the goal and that, and kicked on from there, and it looked like you'd get more at the end. And if we're all being honest, it could have been more. Yeah.
And also, like in that second half as well, I think if that had been a game that we needed something from, that second half plays out differently, doesn't it? Because it was evident that Lefebvre was going to play an hour, Samed was going to come on and get 20, 25 minutes. We had all of these subs almost planned out before the game. If you're playing that game and you need to win, there's absolutely no way in the world Watson stays on for 90 minutes, right? So we had this plan to play, and it was more important to get those players through that than to get an equaliser, as it turned out. And obviously that impacts the end outcome, doesn't it? But I think it's a really important thing that we kind of get our heads round for that game, and the games are going to come up in the next couple of weeks as well, because I was reading the forums earlier, and somebody's slagging off Le Bris for taking my ender off, and you're going, that's not the important thing here.
No,
making sure he's right for the next couple of weeks is the most important thing. He's played a lot of football recently. He ran himself in the ground, playing in front by himself for the best part of an hour or more than an hour. So it's again that bigger picture stuff that we kind of need to look at. As I say, I think if that had been a game that we needed anything out of, then that second half's different because we approach it differently. We have different personnel, we make different subs, and it plays out in a different way than it would have.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon, just on Martin's point, obviously, they end up taking a lead with 15 minutes to go. It looked like Samed were possibly sleeping, not following a man potentially. Then Job, a poor touch, who would come on as sub, and then a minute later, literally just after the goal, as Martin said, Brown replaces Mayenda, and then 5 minutes after that, I think Yelder got booked, and then Anderson came on, who we haven't seen for I don't know for how long. Someone's going to reply to this podcast, I'm sure, on social media and tell us the last time he played.
Probably 2 years, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly. Those two substitutes within 5 minutes of going behind, as Martin said, probably told you everything of where the manager's head was in terms of, needing a result, wanting a result, and it's just about looking after the players at this point.
Yeah, he's got a difficult job, hasn't he, right now? There's no doubt about it. He's got to balance the fact that, listen, we don't need a result. It doesn't make any difference to anything. So what's the most important thing? The most important game is that first game in the playoffs, and he's got to manage the players in the best way that he can. One of the new words, isn't it? Manage players and stuff. He's got to manage the minutes and make sure that they are fit enough and had enough minutes to play, but then not play too much that they might cause themselves to get injuries or feeling knackered or whatever, tired or whatever. And I think he has done that. But the one person I'd say within all of that, probably again, is the one I mentioned earlier on. I can't remember Dan Meal missing any minutes, so probably he needs to come out. He probably needs a bit of a rest. Like Job's had a little niggle on it, I presume, so he's come back in now. He needs some minutes. He's just got to look after everybody and try and get to whatever the date is, the first game, playoff game, and have everybody, as many people as he can do, fit, and get them as many minutes as you can to get them to the right place that they're going to be feeling good when they go out on that pitch in the first playoff game. That's all that can concern him now. Nobody wants to get beat. I don't think he's going out there thinking, I'm not bothered if we don't win today. I'm sure he wants to win, but it's not his primary concern right now. He's got to be, everything's about that first playoff game. And as of some more, we've got to understand that a little bit. It's not an easy one to understand. He's going to make decisions that probably will flummox people, but if people are playing well, you've got to protect them players. They're the most. Mayenda has been flying, so you've got to take him off at 70 minutes. He's run himself into the ground. You're exactly right, Martin. He's done the right thing, so fair play to him. The only thing that matters to us all is that first playoff game, and that's going to change everything for the football club moving forward. So, it's massive.
Well, I'm probably going to ask this question to the wrong person, maybe Gordon, because I've just had a quick look back to that promotion season, 89-90, and you played 59 games that season. And I think Dennis Smith probably only used like 13 players or something like that during that season as well. But I mean, in terms of the players, having these games where there's not much consequence, and then suddenly, coming in and out of the side, and then just suddenly switching it on for the playoffs, is that a difficult thing to do?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was a different time then, like you say. But I am quite proud of that, because that's a club record, by the way. Nobody's ever beaten that ever. That's the most games in its season.
Nobody will.
I hold that record. And nobody will beat it now, by the way. Nobody will get even close, by the way. No. And I only missed 20 minutes of that because I got cramp against that lot up the road. So, and Dennis Smith slaughtered me for getting cramp. There you go. But yeah, back to your main point is, coming in and out. It is hard, yeah. As a footballer, you want to play every minute of every game. I know it's a little bit different now. They are different players. They are used to being brought on and off, and especially forward players. That's what they do with forward players, and everybody does it, whether or not they're going for the playoffs or not. But I do absolutely, understand that he's got to be careful with certain players and try and manage them and get the best out of them. And I think the main people in that would be Mayenda, Enzo, Job. And, all these types of players that are your forward ones, the ones that can win your games, you've got to look after them, because they're the most important ones. Your centre-halves and stuff will take care of themselves, the more defensive ones. But all the midfielders, all the forwards, I think you should be swapping them all around. Give them a chance as well. Give them all a chance to show what they can do. Why not?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just as a fan, Martin, we want to win every game, and we've lost 3 out of the last 6. So you can see why it's tough for Sunderland fans just to accept that, that the form's just dropped off a bit.
I think it's looking back over the last few months rather than the last few weeks. And I think if you're going to be hypercritical of our performances since mid-January, really, we haven't shown that real attacking flair that we'd shown earlier in the season. We haven't, we've laboured a bit in a lot of games. We've kind of come out on top of some games by fine margins. We've lost some games by fine margins. We haven't dominated teams as you might hope that we can. So I think, if you're going to look at it from one perspective, you're going, well, and you've said the point before, Chris, right? How can you turn it on? Because you can't just flick a switch, right? So how can you get into the right shape to attack those 3 games, hopefully 3 games in the playoffs really, really well? And it's going to be difficult. But the biggest chance we've got of doing that is by having the players in peak condition. They've again, the good thing one of the good things that Le Bris has done, he's got the team structure and shape right. You get the impression that everybody who comes into the team knows how to do that job in that area of the pitch. He talked about the triangles that players link up with, and you've got different shapes around the field that players can come in and out of and do a good job. So the players seem to know the roles on the field that they need to undertake and take on. So what you've got to hope is that come the first playoff game, we've got as many of the squad as fit as possible, because the reality is that the teams who we're going to be playing against, they won't be as fresh as we are, because they've been ramping up to get that last playoff spot, one of the last 2 playoff spots. But the flip side of that is they're going to be full of confidence and in good form because they'll have earned that playoff spot. So you've kind of got to balance those 2 things out. But, I was listening to Le Bris talk before the game, and he was saying, he's been talking to people around the club, players and backroom staff, about that last playoff campaign where we went into it basically on our last legs. We had Lyndon Gooch playing left side centre half for the playoff game at Luton, didn't we? And we'd really it was kind of like running on fumes by the end of it. So he's talked to everybody about that. He's managing the squad to enable that we get to that point where we're not facing that situation. And, the reality of it is as well, is that, you talk about resting players and rotating players. And look, you had Harrison Jones coming in last weekend for a game. And again, if that was going to be a game that we needed 3 points out of, he probably wouldn't start, right? But the majority of the team that played yesterday, that started yesterday, will start the first playoff game. There's probably 8 or 9 of them that'll start the first playoff game. So it's not as if he's chucking in 6 or 7 under-21s to mix it up. The vast majority of that team is our team. So that is both good and concerning that we're not in that great form. But look, the game against Bristol City, you can't judge anything off because it was such a different game in terms of having 10 men for the vast majority of it that, it's actually impossible to base anything off. And as we've said, the 5 minutes that we had 11 players were brilliant. So, there is that.
Yep, that's exactly why I put that question to you, Martin, because I knew you would make sense of it all. But and Gordon, just quickly though, I thought I'd just quickly mention in those 59 games, 13 goals as well. I mean, that's pretty from midfield, 13 goals in 59 games. That's pretty impressive that season. But just thought I'd throw that out there. But we've said that the last couple of seasons, we've been worried about who might leave us. And we've been worried about not going up, and then it turns out it wasn't actually so bad. Vultures weren't really circling. This season, it does seem like there's more to it with these vultures circling, with the rumours about Chris Rigg and Job, especially you've already mentioned. Dan Neil is a big one. There's others at the club. How important is it that we do go up in terms of keeping this side together?
Well, I'll possibly say it's the only way we're going to keep them, isn't it? You know what I mean? These lads will be, to be fair, will be, not desperate to leave Sunderland football, I don't think in any way, but they would, love the opportunity to play in the Premier League. If you're a footballer, that's where you want to play. So, it's going to be difficult to hold on to them. That's all I'd say. If we don't get up through the playoffs, it's going to be really, really difficult to hold on to them. They're good players, as simple as that, and people are going to want them. So, it's not an easy situation, and the club have to deal with that, and, do it the best way that they can, get the most money if that comes about, and then reinvest in good players. Hopefully, yeah, that's all. As a supporter, that's all you can hope.
And it's a far, far, far better position than the one that we were in 5 years ago, where nobody wanted any of our players that we were desperate to get rid of.
No, exactly. That's exactly it. That's what I said earlier on. Exactly, it's 100%. Where do you want to be? Exactly. We've got a squad that play other teams will want, and that's a far better position to be. And long term, that's how you've got to do it. And ultimately, that's how you got to build a football club. At the end of the day, I think there was a stat somewhere when Ellis, in the last few years at Ellis Short, the last 5 years, after maybe 10 years, there was 80 players sold, and we made a profit on something like 2 or 3 or something, didn't we? Which is crazy. You can't sustain a football club.
Few, wasn't he?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah.
Well, it's shaping up nicely. Watching Bristol City, I don't think, my personal opinion is I don't think we've got much to fear from them. But there's also the Tony Mowbray aspect hanging around there. I think there's a 6-point gap now, but they're still hanging around. Alex Neil's 6-point gap, so they might look out of it. And obviously Coventry being Coventry, we all love playing them, don't we? And I've done for probably, was it 40 years now or something ridiculous like that. And the other one, 3 points behind Coventry in 6th is Middlesbrough. And Gordon, of course, we'll go back to 1990, that huge semi-final with Newcastle and the build-up that came with it. And we haven't had 2 of the top 3, the big 3, I suppose, in the North East kind of meet in the playoffs since then. I mean, how big would that be if Sunderland did end up facing Middlesbrough, either in the semi-final or actually at Wembley, which I think it was Simon O'Rourke said, I'm not sure how they would sort that out with trains and everything to get down there, but how big would that be?
Yeah, that's what I was watching after the game went off yesterday. I switched it over and I caught me up that Middlesbrough got a penny, so I switched it straight over and they scored, and that changed everything. I think Borough virtually out of it then, they were 5 points behind, 3 games to go. You would have said it was done and dusted, but for me, Coventry are the ones that probably we don't want to face, if I'm being truthful. You know, they do seem to have a bit of a jinx over us, don't they? No matter what we do, we don't seem to beat them. So I'd prefer it if we didn't play Coventry. Anybody else I can cope with, to be honest. I'm not. They certainly think it's a big derby. I don't think we do we? But there you go.
Yeah, but that's sometimes the worry.
I don't want to call out with all people in breath because we've got a few friends there. But there you go.
But that's sometimes the thing with Middlesbrough, isn't it? That actually makes them a tougher opponent because they always seem more up for it than we do.
Yeah, definitely. Over the years, we never had good results there. I know that. But we generally have done okay against Borough, and they have got some good players. You can see that. But I wouldn't be worried about playing Borough too much over two legs. I think you could beat them. You know, probably 60-70% in our favour, I'd say. But Coventry might well be a different game altogether. It's probably 50-50 the way things are going. They are flying. They're playing good stuff. They'd be the one team that you wouldn't want. That's my opinion anyway in the playoffs.
Yeah. I still wake up having nightmares about Roger Thames commentating on us getting stuffed at Ayresome Park. It used to happen every season on trying to ease the match. I mean, Martin, I don't think, you know, I might just be looking at this on a one-off game, but Bristol City had to get the points, and I don't think we've got anything to fear from them.
I think it's really difficult. I think, again, that game yesterday was a tough one to judge either side of, wasn't it? And, you know, in some respects, it might work in our favour, because if we'd gone there with a full-strength side and got turned over yesterday, then it gives a little bit of an advantage to them in terms of psychology, doesn't it? But the fact that we were down 10 men changed the whole thing. Look, I think if you're going to pick who you want to play in the semi-finals of the playoffs, I would take Bristol City ahead of the other clubs that we could potentially face. I have a recurring nightmare about Middlesbrough players sort of reenacting Isidor's celebration of the corner flag at the Stadium of Light. So, you know, which would happen if we got beat off them, wouldn't it? So I'd rather avoid them. I'd rather avoid Coventry. So I think if we can, I would take Bristol City now, and I would, you know, I genuinely think on our day we can beat anybody in that league, and that includes the teams that are going to get automatic promotion. I think we've proved that against Burnley this season. We've proved against Sheffield United, and I think we just have to have confidence in ourselves and, you know, not necessarily worry about anybody else. And look, if we get Coventry, good, let's stuff them. Like, take it as the opportunity to banish that little hoodoo that they've got over us, and, you know, that's all that matters, isn't it? But no, I didn't see, going back to your point, I didn't see much from Bristol City, but I thought we defended really, really well. And I don't think we'd be that defensive even in the first leg of a playoff semi. So it's kind of difficult. And look, they're obviously there for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the big thing is the total one-off game, so you can never predict anyway. You can do all the planning you want. You can do everything. But like yesterday, if you get a player sent off in 5 minutes or the opposition does, it changes everything. They're just totally weird games. They're absolutely mad, and anything can happen. Two legs gives you a better team, a chance to prevail, you would say. And I think we are better teams than most of the teams in the playoffs right now. I think we can beat any of them on our day, certainly. So I'm not worried about anybody, but if you could handpick that, I'd probably agree. Yeah, probably Bristol City would be the one you'd probably pick. But, and I'm saying they're a bad side because they're not. They looked okay yesterday, but that would be the one you handpick. But hey, they could beat us 5-0. Who knows? That's football.
Well, I wasn't bothered about Borough until Martin mentioned that Isidor celebration.
Same me. Yeah, these are going to be one night, man. We're all looking to sleep now. Always. Thanks, cheers, Martin. Yeah,
that's all right. That's what I'm here for.
I'm not sure if you made it the League One final, Gordon, but you tried to get down to Wembley if we made it.
Yes, I was at the League One. Yeah, enjoyed that, and I will be down at Wembley if we get there. Yeah, I look forward to it. So let's just hope we get there. Yeah, that's the most important bit. Yeah, it'd be class again. Yeah, to be fair, if we can get there, and obviously to win is just amazing. Unfortunately, I've experienced the other side, but yeah, winning would be amazing. Yeah, to know you're in the Premier League next season, no matter what, it is amazing for the football club. Yeah, but we all love it.
That's it. Another lost weekend in Wembley would be good. But I'm not going to ask Martin for a couple of weeks because he's pricing up flights from Australia. So on that note, it just leaves me to say thank you very much, Martin. Always a pleasure, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And thank you for joining us, Gordon. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hope you have a cracking end to your bank holiday weekend, mate.
Top man. Thank you. Cheers.
Good stuff.
Cheers, Charlie.
Thanks again. And thanks again for everyone for listening. Only 3 games to go now, and the pods will keep on rolling in. So please like and subscribe and all of that. And of course, keep a look out at Roker Report for all the build-up ahead of the Blackburn game and beyond. And we'll have a preview pod with Ian Herbert from 4,000 Holes podcast, and he explains why it's called 4,000 Holes. And you'll want to listen to that, because actually I found that quite interesting.
I can guess.
Well, go on then. Go on then. Spoil it.
Beatles song.
Yeah, you got it.
There you go.
I knew you would get it. I shouldn't have mentioned anything. And, well, keep an eye out in all the usual places for the next pod. That should be dropping very soon. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.